Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Data Show. I'm your host, Chris Greco. For the next 30 minutes, we'll be talking about different types of data, what you do with it, how you analyze it, the different aspects that has to do with basically taking statistics, moving it into data, and trying to make sense of the situation as it may be presented in the media or other areas, but focusing on really the media and what's going on. Originally, I had this show scheduled for a kind of a humorous type side because my book is currently out. Data Analyst Walks into a Bar Graph. It's available at Amazon, and I'll give you a little bit about that. A shameless plug for the book at the end of this video. But basically, I want to show some steps for data retrieval and analysis having to do with runway incursions. Evidently, what's been happening is that the media is making a big deal out of basically what is considered to be a, a, a kind of operational error. I guess it happens. I'm a pilot. True, I haven't had, I have a couple hundred hours, some in helicopters, but basically, I get really concerned about this stuff because I think people do not understand, what a runway incursion is and what happens and those types of things. And there's different types of runway incursions, but the bottom line is that should we be concerned about this as a flyer, as a passenger? Should we be concerned about what goes on and what the situation is? So what I did was I tried to figure out, okay, what is it that we want to do, and then take some steps for data retrieval and analysis based on what the current data says about runway incursions, because the Federal Aviation Administration is very strict about any type of operational deviation, whether it be pilot deviation, whether it be some vehicle that going onto the runway. But basically, runway incursion is anything that prevents that runway from being used at that point in time. And it could be as what situation that happened just recently is that you got a plane that's basically taxiing and going across the runway, and the other one landing on that runway. Now, I'm going to try to put this in perspective, but the bottom line is let's just take a look at the data and see what we have. So the first thing is what are we looking for? What are you looking for? So that's the first question to ask. If you don't know what you're looking for in the way of data, then all you're going to be doing is just basically punching a bunch of stuff in the search engine. You're not going to be doing anything that's going to be constructive whatsoever. And I think that's very important to understand that. So what is your hypothesis? What are you looking for? And basically what I was looking for was runway incursions. But it's the hardest part of the whole process. Everyone sits back and says, boy, data is so difficult. Actually, the data collection and the data retrieval and that type of thing is actually pretty simple. There's nothing really hard about it. It's the question that you want to ask as a result of that. I mean, the question that you ask, it all depends on the complexity of that. The more complex the question, the more hard, the more difficult it is going to be to try to get that data, or to get the data that you need to be able to answer the question, because that's what you want. You want the data to answer the question. So you look to where you think you can get the best data. Now, in my case, I was a government worker, military, 35 years, both military and civilian government work. I did work for the Department of Defense. I worked for Social Security Administration. I worked for those areas, a lot of which had to do with data retrieval and data aspects. So I like the federal government. I like the federal government because especially places where the collated data can live, right? So in this case, be the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. We used to have a phrase, and it's on a T-shirt actually. It says something like FAA. We're not happy till you're not happy, because FAA is basically the bad guy of all the different aviation aspects. Yes, they want to help, and they have a ton of things out on the FAA website that helps pilots, that talks a lot about that, and they have a lot of data. So I looked up runway incursions, not Russian incursions. That's another whole thing. Runway incursions, and then I looked for FAA.gov. Now, the probably best place to get collated data, again, Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, FAA.gov, not .com, not .org, not any of that. Because I'm going to tell you right now, and this is just my opinion, and you can take it, leave it, you can take it or toss it and do whatever you want, with it. But when you talk about .com, that means it's a commercial website. Because it's a commercial website, it its data, the chances are that they're going to get their data the same place you're going to get the data. Going to get it from the FAA. They're going to get it from, they're not going to get it from commercial areas. And what happens is that they're going to take that data, derived data, and then they're going to do whatever they need to do with it. Much like I'm doing. Much like I'm doing. I agree. But the bottom line is that they can present their data as being from them, and it's not. And they may have source at the end or whatever it is, but you got to be careful about commercial derivation of original data. That's you got to be careful about that. And and I'm doing the same thing. So whatever I'm saying, whatever I'm pointing out, whatever I'm presenting in the way of analyzed data, you may want to go back and do the data yourself. I'll give you the sources. You can go back and do it yourself. I mean, there's no problem with that. And being a good data analyst, you probably have some questions that I'm not going to be able to answer. So those are the things you want to look up. Okay. Data verification. The federal government usually collects data from clients, which is good. Usually do for surveys. But at Social Security, we used to get different types of beneficiary data. It was anonymous, of course, but the bottom line is it really helped us to be able to determine, how many people were coming into the offices, so we could figure out what our operational tempo was. So we could, who needed to operate at the different locations, that type of thing. FAA incident reporting in most cases is mandatory. So basically what happens is you collect the data because it's mandatory to collect that data, whether it be commercial pilots or what they call general aviation. I was general aviation. I was, a private pilot. I'm a private pilot. So the bottom line is that's what you do. So the data I point out is at that site. So if you want to go to that site, you can see the runway safety statistics. Now it only has 2021 and 2020, but bottom line is it gives pretty much all the ones till 2018. Now, I noticed that when I went to that data, and I'll show you. I think it's important to show you the data. So so what we'll do is we'll pop out of here just for a second, and let me show you. This is the Excel spreadsheet that I went in there. But what I want to show you is I want to show you the actual data, and I think that's important. So so if I were to go to that site, right, fa.gov, and talk about the runway safety statistics and runway incursions, this is a situation where you have that. Now I'm going to sorry about this. I'm just going to give you the runway safety statistics, and then we'll go from there. So this is the actual site where you have the runway statistics. So that's pretty cool. I like that. So that's where you have that, and this is where you have all these different situations. Now I'm going to just hit one here. When I do that, it's going to bring up that. Now the thing is that I don't like about this at all is that there's no what they call data dictionary. You don't know what OI is. You don't know what other is. Well, you know what other is, but PD. You don't know what VPD is. Now I can tell you this is operational aspects. PD is pilot pilot deviation, vehicle pedestrian deviation, but you don't have that anywhere here. There's nowhere in here where it explains that. In fact, there's nowhere in here where it explains any of that. So it's a situation where I thought, well, what do I do now? So literally, I put in the search engine about what exactly was going on, and it's pretty cool. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think I can actually do this. Yeah. So if I go to this, I think I can just go right to it. Yeah. So this is the actual runway incursion incident reporting from Purdue. And what I did was I took a look at it, and by gosh, here it is. OI, operational incident, ATC, which I didn't see ATC anywhere on that chart. Pilot deviation, runway incursion due to action of a pilot which violates any FAA regulation. Okay. Vehicle pedestrian deviation, runway incursions due to vehicles or pedestrians entering into the movement area without clearance from ATC, air traffic control. the air traffic controller. So this is it. But they don't have that in the runway in the runway incursions here. So I thought, well, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take and I'm going to take that and I'm going to put that into an Excel spreadsheet, which I did. And so that was my sheet here, sheet one. And what I did was I did some, I looked at different years. And if you take a look at different years on this thing, you're going to find something that's really interesting. And I thought it was. Um, it's that, I take the month here and then the year here, and I took an average. I even took a median. And then what I did was I made a column for average, the average that I got overall average here, because I wanted to show it on the chart to show, and we'll get into that, the chart aspects and everything else. But the thing in 2020 that was interesting, now 2020 was the year of pandemics, but look at this. 102, this is the total number of runway incursions. 102, 102, 118, 118, 131, 131. Now look, I am all about possible coincidences. I get this, that it could be a possible coincidence. But this number of exact same overall total runway incursions, 1 month apart here, or 2 months apart here, 1 month apart here, 1 month apart here. So basically 6 months have, duplicate type totals. I don't know. There's something wrong. You know, I mean, oh, wow, it's coincidental. Yeah, maybe so, but same amount 2 months in a row, same amount 2 months in a row, same amount 1 month apart. I don't know. I just if I were a data auditor, if I went in there, I would say, there's something wrong with this data on 2020. Now I realize it's a pandemic. I mean, take a look at this. You have in the summertime, 2021, you have 176. 2019, you have 173. Here you have 118. So it dropped significantly. I get that. But this is a situation where you have to just really, I would take a look at that and I'd say 2020 is suspect. Now, this is blank because, of course, April 2023 hasn't existed yet. So that's why this is all not there. Now, why is this there then? Well, they do by fiscal years. So you have, October being the first month. So that's the first month being uh, reported. And you have to understand that fiscal years go from October 1st to September 30th. So that's why you have to take that into consideration. So with 2023, I didn't really take into consideration all that much, but these I did, and this is this is what I have. I took the average. I even took the median. Just to show you the difference here. I mean, you can see with the median and the average. You know, 116 to 130, 140, 152, 158 to 170, so 155. Now, again, this includes this area, which is, of course, is a bunch of zeros. Now, you see that the average here has been affected by these zeros, but this median has not. So I really like that the fact that remains that that median is what they call a robust median. But average is what we use all the time. So this is what we have. I put the source here. So this is the source if you want to take a look at it. And I also put a note in there to show that, hey, look, these were all placed together, all of them, operational incidents. Now, operational incidents could take into consideration air traffic control, but it didn't really go into that. It didn't really have that. And this is where, when you sit there and say operational incidents, runway incursions due to the action of the air traffic controller. So even though ATC is not included as a separate area, this is due to the action of the air traffic controller is an operational incident. So what would be better, and basically sit there and look at this and say, oh, then maybe what I need to do is I need to uh, take a look at this and make sure that the operational incidents are such. Now, what did I have to do to make this handy dandy Excel spreadsheet? Well, I had to take the figures from here and copy them one by one by one in there, in that area. So I just copied the totals. So if I had this, right, I took a look at this, 26 to 22, 34 to 24, 15 to 19. I mean, there's 10 less operational incidents between 2022 and 2023 in what they call the first fiscal year quarter. So, I mean, that would be actually pretty good. If you take an operational incident, split that out, put that in an Excel spreadsheet, put the charts together, and then you have the operational instance, and you can go all the way back to 2018, as it shows here. So you can actually do that. This is national runway incursions, and this is regional. And regional literally means regional. I mean, so I I don't go in that direction. I'll just go with the national, and we'll just go from there. So I'm going to what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of this data, and we're going to see what it is. So copied an Excel spread, prepared some graphs. First one showed all runway incursions 2018 to 2023 in the bar graph. Second one showed the same data on the line graphs by month. Now, the first thing you're going to see, in fact, let's just go there. Average runway incursion by month. So this is the average one. Now you can see June, July, and August is much more than, let's say, January, February, March, April. And it's fun. They say, well, there's more flying done in the summertime than in that winter, in that wintertime area, and then it grows back up and then peaks out again. So that's why the more flights you have, the more probability you have of a possible runway incursion. So that just makes sense. So let's go by median runway incursions, and you can see the median is I call it much more pronounced. So you have those areas. This is the average, right? This is the median. So you can see it raised up because the median is much more robust. It's not affected by highs and lows in the overall data. So it presents what I consider to be a truer, more valid result, that a more valid analysis of the data. So that's basically what you have here. And again, you have some shots here, but here September it kind of went down, August, September. Then all of a sudden it pops back up in October. And people sit back and they go, "Gee, why is that? Why is October such a big deal?" And to tell the truth, I did not take a look at any association of anything. I just took a look and I see that there's a rise on that. I don't know why. It could be, maybe people are trying to get in something before the holiday season starts or whatever else. And then the holiday season starts and flying goes down, which is interesting because you think flying would go up. This is the number of runway incursions by month, runway runway incursions by month. And you can see here, this is 2020, which is the yellow here. So what I did was I thought, this is just a bunch of colors, and it's not really popping what I need to pop here. So what I did was I went ahead and I made this line black and made this line dashed to show the difference between 2021 and 2020. So this is 2020 during the pandemic, way low, right? I mean, down here, then all of a sudden it kind of pops up a little bit around October, November, December in 2020. And then all of a sudden 2021, boom, it just pops right back up, and there's May, June, July again. And there's your, there it is. And this is just numbers, not average, just numbers. So pretty high here in June. As a matter of fact, one of the highest ones. And, it's no wonder, people were, getting back into the swing of things, trying to get, flying in. This black line shows the average runway incursions by month and year. And what I did was I put, this is the average here, and then I pumped it against the average here. And you can see that, this is the average and these are the numbers. So basically what happens is that this is, you can see everything is above average except some of them in 2023, maybe down here around 2018. You had kind of low in October, November, December. And then here you had very low because of the pandemic in 2020. So that line kind of gives you an idea as to where the average is: above average, below average. So I like that. So that pretty much is it. I mean, the bottom line is that you have a situation where you can take a look at this. Now, people might say, "Well, Chris, what about you always talk about relative aspects, relative density, all that stuff." So, you could actually do this. Number of flights, um, US 20, let's say 2022, right? So say number of flights. Air traffic by the numbers, right? So we'll just go to FAA again. So there's over 16 million flights handled by the FAA yearly. And this is air traffic control numbers, right? So based on 2021 figures, 45,000 average daily flights handled by the FAA. So I mean, this is yearly. This is 45,000 daily flights. So if you take that number, 45,000 that they have there, just generally, and multiply that times 30, which, we'll go ahead and do that right here. So, so, just ooh, whoa, whoa. Okay, let's see if we can. Yeah, so 45,000. If you take 45,000 and you go ahead and take it and multiply it times 30, just 30, right? So we'll just do it by 30. We'll just do it over here. So 45,000 times 30, right? So this is over 1,350,000 flights, nominally type thing. It's just, we're just taking the 45,000 because it says average daily flights. So it could be more, could be less, times 30. That's a million. That's a million flights. Out of that, these are the number of runway, the number of runway incursions. And so if we take a look and say, oh, yearly, oh, it's, million, and you have 136 runway incursions over a million flights. I mean, it puts it all in those areas, right? You sit back and you go, wow, that just is minuscule, compared to what the actual flights are. I mean, I'm going to tell you as a pilot, I'm going to tell you as a person that has flown commercial, whatever else, it's very safe to fly. The flying aspect, it's very, very well controlled. Now, again, you had another situation where people sat back and said, oh, there's a pilot that got sick. I mean, what about pilot error? So pilot illness in the cockpit, right? And we'll go to FA on that. Let's find out. Let's see if there's anything there. Um, Southwest flight returns reports of pilot, did whatever. But here we go. FAA issues safety alert to pilots after near miss. Fitness for flight. So this is where you can see all the fitness for flight. All these people, right? Except if you're flying gliders and flying balloons, you have to be medically fit to fly. Medically fit to fly. So there's nothing here, folks, that when they talk about these things, there's nothing here that says, oh, the pilots are going to have a heart attack. No, no, they're not going to have a heart attack. Pilots are relatively well physically fit. I mean, they're not going to. FAA is very, very stringent about medical standards. As a matter of fact, and there was a story. I don't know how apocryphal it was or not, but it's data. It's data. Uh, it's a data focused story where the FAA and Social Security got together, and Social Security provided FAA with data on people getting disability payments. And the FAA found that there were pilots, not just general aviation pilots, but actual commercial pilots that were getting Social Security disability for a medical condition that would prevent them from flying. So they went back and they did all kind of corrective measures on that, did whatever. So they really do try to keep that medical standard up as much as possible. There are some things I disagree with on that, but it's overall, I think they really want to make sure that the pilots and everybody else is safe on that, on those areas. So that's how to do data collection, data retrieval, and try to put that in a form that's understandable to people, and I think that's pretty important. So I'm sure people will take a look at this and they'll say, "Oh, Chris, I would have done this differently." Hey, as long as there are data analysts out there, different data analysts, there's going to be different analysis, and that's perfectly okay. What I'm trying to point out here through this entire program is that the media will tend to focus in on on vignettes, on situations that happen to this many people, and attempt to rationalize it to happen to this many people, and that's not the way to do things. Go out for yourself, take a look at the data, and make sure that that data is points out that you should be concerned about FAA and their standards and everything else that's going on. As a pilot, as a person who participates in flying, who teaches people standards, who does all these things, I'm going to tell you that I am not concerned. I mean, the FAA will rule on this. They'll make sure that those things are happening. I think I'm going to tell you it's interesting. The one thing that they always told us as pilots was check the fuel. General aviation, there's always this thing. Well, the fuel is fine. Look, it's full. Whatever else was going on, but it gets a point now where you have to actually go up on the wing, open up the gas cap, and make sure that fuel is full. And I just think that's so good to be able to do those things and be able to make sure that we do them correctly. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and end it for today. I really appreciate your attention on this. This is something that's important. When you have a question, it's good to be able to know the step-by-step approach as to where you're going to get this data, how you're going to present the data, and it makes you feel better as a person to sit back and take a look at this data and figure out exactly what's going on. This was a very simple example, but it's something that hopefully you'll all take and use as a template to be able to take a look at these different data points and be able to find them and be able to use them in whatever method you want to. And whether you want to publish it like I do or you want to do something else, then that's perfectly okay. So I want to do one more plug, and that is for my book. A data analyst walks into a bar graph, and I think uh, this is important because it is a funny book. It talks about all the different aspects um, of what we talk about here, but it is something that is important. So uh, it it's on Amazon, and you can get it on Amazon. I'm going to tell you right now, and this is just my opinion, that the Amazon price is a little bit on the ridiculous side. It's way too expensive. So if you want this book, um, and contact me through www.gregtech.com. I'd be more than happy to get you a copy of the book at a much more reasonable price. Uh, so just wanted to let you know that this is something that I don't know why they do this. I don't know why this is so expensive. But it is, it gets almost a little bit ridiculous from that standpoint. So a data analyst walks into a bar graph, and make sure that you look on lulu.com for it, or you can look on Amazon, and if you want to pay that price, that's fine. But I think that's a way too expensive price to pay for this book. So on that note, I will say have a great day. Make sure that you check the data. Make sure that you use the steps to be able to get the data that you want and that you want to use for your own benefit. Until next time, this is Chris Greco signing off for the Data Show. Have a great day.